Single mechanic taught a kid to fix her bike, unaware her mother was the CEO watching the whole time. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The evening air was cool and heavy with the smell of motor oil and rain. The last orange light of the sun faded behind the line of old brick buildings on Maple Street, leaving a soft haze over Cole's garage. Inside, Ethan Cole wiped his hands on a rag that had long since given up on being clean. The day had been long, like every other. Customers came and went, bills stacked higher, and the ticking wall clock reminded him that time never waited for a man trying to rebuild his life. He closed the metal door halfway when a small voice stopped him. "Excuse me, sir. Can you help me?" Ethan turned. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, stood beside a purple bicycle with a chain hanging loose. One of her knees was scraped, and her backpack was half open, stuffed with crayons and notebooks. She looked lost between bravery and tears. Ethan knelt beside the bike. "What happened here, kiddo?" "The chain fell off," she said softly. "I tried to fix it, but it keeps getting stuck." He smiled gently. "Well, that happens. Let us take a look." As he worked, his rough hands moved with the kind of care that came from years of fixing broken things. Not just engines, but his own heart. "You see this part? When it slips off, you lift it back over the gear teeth, like this." The girl leaned closer, her eyes wide. "Can I try?" "Sure," he said, handing her a small wrench. "Turn it slowly. That is it? Nice work." The chain clicked back into place. The little girl's face lit up. "It works!" Ethan grinned. "Told you it would. But next time, make sure you keep your fingers clear, all right?" She nodded eagerly. "Thank you, mister. My name is Lucy." "Nice to meet you, Lucy. You are a fast learner." She paused, looking at him seriously. "Can you teach me more? I want to fix things too." Ethan chuckled. "Maybe next time. For now, get home before it gets dark." As she pedaled away, waving, Ethan stood at the edge of the sidewalk, watching her disappear down the street. He felt a quiet warmth spread through him, the kind that only came when you did something good without thinking twice. He did not notice the sleek black car parked across the road, engine off, headlights dimmed. Behind the tinted window, a woman watched the entire scene. Her expression softened as she saw her daughter ride off safely, the man's old jacket still draped across her shoulders. Claire Davenport, Chief Executive Officer of Davenport Motors, rested her chin on her hand. She had come to pick up her daughter from art class, only to find the flat tire and the stranger who stopped to help. There was something about him, his patience, his honesty, the way he never once looked up to see who might be watching. As Ethan walked back into the garage, she whispered to herself, "People like that are rare." Then she started the car and drove away into the quiet evening, unaware that this small encounter would change both of their lives forever. Back inside, Ethan turned off the light and stood for a moment in the dark. The hum of the city faded, replaced by the soft tick of the clock and the faint scent of oil and rain. He smiled to himself, not knowing that kindness, once given, often finds its way back. That night, the wind picked up again, pushing a steady rain against the garage windows. Ethan sat on the edge of his small workbench, turning an old wrench in his hands. The room smelled faintly of oil, steel, and the faint sweetness of wet asphalt outside. The neon sign above the door flickered, humming like it was tired too. He had closed late again, as usual. The paycheck from the week was thin, barely enough to cover rent on the cramped apartment behind the shop. He shared that space with his younger brother, Dylan, who had been asleep for hours. Dylan was 16, bright but restless, a kid who still believed that good grades could buy a better life. Ethan wished he could believe it too. He rubbed his temples, staring at the wall where a single photograph hung a picture of him and Dylan as boys, grinning beside their father's first garage. His father had passed from a heart attack 5 years earlier, leaving behind debt, a few tools, and a lesson Ethan never forgot. Fix what you can, even if it is yourself. Outside, a siren wailed faintly, swallowed by the storm. Ethan leaned back, feeling the exhaustion settle deep in his shoulders. Sometimes he wondered how long he could keep this place alive. The bank had already sent 2 warnings. One more missed payment, and the property would be repossessed. He stood and crossed the narrow room to check on Dylan. The boy was sprawled under a thin blanket, one arm hanging off the bed, his earbuds still glowing faintly. On the desk nearby lay a half-finished homework assignment and a stack of job applications Ethan had printed for himself. Mechanic helper, delivery driver, warehouse assistant. Each one felt like a small surrender. Ethan turned off the desk lamp and looked at his brother's face. "You will not end up like me," he whispered. "I will make sure of that." He stepped outside for a breath of air. The rain had softened to a mist, coating everything in silver. He looked up at the sign that read Cole's Garage in faded blue paint. The light buzzed weakly, but it was still on. Somehow, that felt like enough reason to keep going. Across town, Claire sat at her kitchen island, a glass of water untouched beside her. The clock read 11:30. Lucy was asleep upstairs, her repaired bicycle leaning against the hallway wall. The purple frame gleamed under the porch light, chain perfectly aligned. Claire scrolled absently through her tablet, but her thoughts kept circling back to the man she had seen earlier. The way he spoke to Lucy, patient, calm, never talking down to her, had struck something deep. Most adults brushed children aside, too busy to see them. That man had crouched down and met her daughter at eye level, dirt on his hands but kindness in his eyes. She opened her company file on local vendor contracts. Davenport Motors had recently discussed opening community service programs, auto apprenticeships, repair workshops. The board loved statistics and headlines, but Claire had always wanted the human side. She wondered, could a man like that mechanic teach something her executives never could? Her assistant's words from the last meeting echoed in her head. "You cannot build empathy into a brand, Claire." Maybe, she thought, but you can build it into people. She closed the tablet and stared out the window, where city lights shimmered against the wet streets. Somewhere out there, that man was probably finishing another long shift, unaware that he had just made an impression on someone who could change his life. Back at the garage, Ethan finally turned off the main light. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. He poured himself a cup of black coffee gone cold and sat near the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass. His reflection looked older than his 32 years. He thought of the little girl, Lucy, the way she smiled when the bike chain clicked back into place. There was something innocent and grounding in that moment. For a few minutes, he had not been a man drowning in debt. He had simply been useful. He leaned his head against the cool glass and whispered to himself, "Maybe that is enough. Just being useful." The city outside was quiet now. The kind of quiet that only comes after a long storm. Ethan closed his eyes, unaware that life was already setting the next chain of events in motion, one that would test his strength, his pride, and the very idea of what it meant to fix something broken. The next morning arrived with pale light spilling through the garage windows. The air smelled of metal, rain, and the faint sweetness of coffee brewing in a dented pot near the workbench. Ethan's alarm had gone off before sunrise, as always. He never needed the clock. Habit woke him before it did. He pulled on his faded work shirt, brushed the dust from his hands, and walked toward the small office corner. Bills waited in a stack beside a jar labeled tax. He dropped 3 wrinkled dollar bills into it, the sound dull, but strangely satisfying. Every cent mattered. Every act of effort was a promise to himself that he was not giving up. Outside, the ground was slick from last night's storm. The sky hung low, gray but gentle, the kind that hinted at a better day. Ethan unlocked the front door, flipping the sign from closed to open. The neon light buzzed faintly again, stubborn like him. His eyes caught on something new near the counter, a small folded note tucked under the coffee mug he had left out. He frowned, unfolded it, and read in neat handwriting. "Thank you for fixing my bike. Mom said to give you this. From Lucy." Inside was a drawing done in colored pencil. A man in a blue shirt fixing a purple bicycle while the sun smiled down on them. Beside the man, a small heart was drawn in bright red crayon. Taped to the paper was a single blue button, shiny and clean. Ethan smiled slowly. He remembered giving Lucy a rag yesterday that had lost its button. Somehow, she had found a new one to replace it. "A little mechanic in the making," he murmured. He pinned the drawing to the corkboard behind the counter, beside unpaid invoices and schedules. It brightened the whole space instantly. That picture became his new reminder, a small symbol of kindness that made the oil-stained walls feel a little less heavy. Around 9 o'clock, the bell above the door jingled. A woman entered, dressed in a crisp beige coat and dark sunglasses. Her heels clicked against the concrete floor, the sound sharp but controlled. She carried herself with quiet confidence. Ethan wiped his hands on a towel and stepped forward. "Good morning," he said. "How can I help you?" She smiled politely. "Good morning. My name is Claire Davenport. I think my car could use a checkup. It is an electric model, the Davenport Lux 9. Ethan blinked, a little surprised. He had seen that model only in magazines. "You came to the right place, Miss Davenport, though I will admit, I do not get many electric cars here." "Oh, that is fine," she replied softly. "I heard you are good with engines, Mr. Cole." He tilted his head. "Who told you that?" She gave a small smile. "A reliable source." Ethan walked around the car, admiring its sleek silver frame. He ran a careful hand along the hood, avoiding the shine. "Beautiful machine," he said. "You do not see craftsmanship like this often." Claire watched him closely. "Do you like what you do, Mr. Cole?" He looked up from the hood, thinking for a moment. "Fixing things is all I know. Cars do not lie. If something is broken, it shows. You fix it right, it stays fixed. People, well, people are not that simple." Something in his voice made her pause. "You sound like you have seen both kinds of problems." "Maybe," he said, setting down his wrench. "But engines do not judge you back." She smiled faintly, understanding more than he realized. "Would you mind if I waited while you check it?" "Of course not," he said. "There is coffee on the counter, though it is not fancy." She laughed lightly, the sound echoing through the quiet garage. "That is perfectly fine." As Ethan worked, the soft whir of tools filled the space. Claire walked around, studying the photos on the wall, one of two boys smiling beside an older man, another of the same man standing beside a worn pickup truck. She saw the drawing tacked up near the desk and stepped closer. Her heart tightened when she recognized the handwriting. "Lucy." Ethan noticed her glance. "A little girl from yesterday," he said. "Her bike broke outside. Sweet kid." "She drew that." Claire smiled, keeping her voice even. "She must have been very grateful." "She was brave," he said simply. "Most kids cry. She just wanted to learn." Claire looked at him, realizing this man still had no idea who she really was. No idea that the little girl he had helped was her daughter. For the first time in a long while, she felt something shift, a quiet respect. Not for his skill, but for his heart. Ethan finished tightening a bolt and wiped his hands. "Your car's perfect, Miss Davenport. You take good care of it." "Thank you," she said, handing him a business card. "If you ever want to work with newer technology, my company could use someone with your hands and your honesty." He took the card, unsure how to respond. "I will think about it." "Oh." When she left, the bell chimed softly again, leaving behind a faint scent of her perfume and a lingering sense that something important had just happened. Ethan looked down at the card. Davenport Motors, Chief Executive Officer, Claire Davenport. He exhaled slowly, not realizing that the note and the drawing pinned to his wall had just connected two lives far beyond coincidence. Days passed quietly after that meeting. Ethan kept the business card tucked inside his wallet, folded neatly beside a photograph of his family. He looked at it every night before bed but never dialed the number. Big companies like Davenport Motors did not need small-town mechanics. Still, something about that encounter lingered in his mind, the calm in Claire's voice, the way she looked at the drawings on his wall, the faint warmth she left behind. One Wednesday afternoon, the bell over the garage door rang again. When Ethan looked up, his breath caught. Claire stood there once more, dressed more casually this time, her sunglasses resting on top of her head. "I hope I am not interrupting," she said. "Not at all," Ethan replied, wiping his hands on a towel. "Your car giving you trouble already?" She smiled. "No, it is running perfectly. I am actually here for something else." She looked around the garage, as if choosing her words carefully. "I am organizing a new community project. Davenport Motors wants to sponsor local repair workshops. We are hoping to teach practical skills to young people who cannot afford college. When I saw your shop, I thought, this is exactly the kind of spirit we need. Ethan raised his eyebrows. You want me to help teach? If you are willing, she said softly. You have patience, and you have heart. That is rarer than you think. He hesitated. The thought of standing in a modern facility surrounded by corporate staff felt almost impossible. Miss Davenport, I am just a mechanic. My shop is old, my tools are older, and I am not exactly a teacher. Claire stepped closer. You taught a little girl to fix her bike in the rain. You already are a teacher. For a moment, Ethan could not speak. He looked down at his oil-stained hands, the same hands that had once felt like proof of failure, now being seen as something valuable. He finally nodded. If you think I can help, I will try. Her smile was genuine this time, bright and unguarded. Good. The first workshop is this Saturday at our downtown center. I will send someone to pick you up. When she left, the shop felt strangely quiet, filled with the echo of her words. Ethan turned to the wall where Lucy's drawing still hung. He noticed the small blue button she had taped there was catching the light. Somehow, it looked like a tiny spark of hope. Saturday came faster than expected. A black company van arrived at the garage, and Ethan climbed in, wearing his cleanest shirt and carrying his old toolbox. As they drove through the city, skyscrapers rose around him, cold glass and shining steel reflecting a world he had never been part of. The community center was bright, filled with rows of young people waiting by workstations. Claire was already there, greeting each student with the same calm grace he had seen before. When she saw Ethan, her eyes lit up. Everyone, she said, raising her voice slightly, this is Mr. Ethan Cole. He believes that no matter where you come from, hard work can take you anywhere. Ethan swallowed hard, caught between pride and disbelief. He looked around the room, the faces watching him, the gleaming tools laid out on the tables. For the first time in years, he felt like his life had turned towards something larger than survival. As he began showing the group how to replace a spark plug, he noticed Claire standing near the door, her daughter Lucy beside her, watching quietly. Lucy waved, grinning from ear to ear. Ethan smiled back, understanding in that instant that everything had just come full circle. Over the following weeks, the workshop became a quiet success. Ethan arrived early each Saturday, helping the students learn how to repair engines, replace brakes, and understand the rhythm of a motor. The young people called him Mr. Cole. And though the title made him uncomfortable, he secretly loved hearing it. Claire often stood at the back of the room, watching him work. She saw how his voice softened when he explained something complicated, how his patience never faltered even when a student dropped a wrench or miswired a plug. There was no arrogance in him, only a steady belief that effort and honesty still mattered. One afternoon after the class ended, Claire invited him to stay for coffee in the small lounge upstairs. The city skyline shimmered through the tall glass windows, gold and gray in the late light. You have done something remarkable, she said. The board has noticed. Our numbers are improving, but more importantly, morale is higher than ever. Ethan smiled faintly. I just show them what I know. Machines are honest. They give back exactly what you put in. She looked at him thoughtfully. You are different from anyone I have worked with, Ethan. Her tone carried something unspoken admiration, maybe even affection. Before he could answer, a sharp knock came at the door. Claire's assistant entered, carrying a folder. Miss Davenport, the press is asking for a statement about your new partnership. They want to feature Mr. Cole's story in the article. Ethan's hands froze around his coffee cup. My story? Claire's expression softened. Do not worry. I will make sure they respect your privacy. But they will probably mention your garage, maybe even Lucy's drawing. He nodded slowly, though unease rippled beneath his calm. If that helps the program, then do what you must. As he left the building that evening, Ethan looked back at the bright sign that read, Davenport Motors Community Center. For the first time, he realized how far he had come from that rain-soaked night when he helped a stranded little girl. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered that attention could be dangerous. He had no idea that the truth about who Claire really was to Lucy and the world watching them both was about to change everything. By the end of that month, Ethan's life had taken a turn he never expected. His garage was busier than ever, filled with new customers who had read about the mechanic who teaches for free. The local newspaper ran a headline calling him the working-class hero of Davenport Motors. At first, he laughed it off, but soon strangers began stopping by just to shake his hand. Claire visited often, sometimes with Lucy, sometimes alone. She always brought that quiet warmth with her, the kind that steadied his nerves when the world outside grew loud. Together, they planned the next series of workshops, discussing how to expand them into other neighborhoods. For the first time in years, Ethan felt part of something bigger than himself. One evening, after locking up, he found Claire waiting by her car. "I wanted to thank you," she said softly. "Because of you, people are starting to believe again in second chances, in kindness." Ethan smiled. "You give me too much credit. You started this, Claire." She shook her head. "No, you did. You reminded me why I began this company in the first place." A moment of silence passed between them, comfortable but charged. Then Lucy ran up, clutching a small paper in her hands. "Mr. Cole, look, I drew us fixing cars together." Ethan knelt to see the drawing, a stick-figure version of him and Lucy, under a giant sun, both smiling. He laughed softly. "That is perfect. You even remembered my wrench." Claire watched them, her heart tightening with something she had not felt in years. She could see the way Ethan looked at her daughter, not as a CEO's child, but simply as a kid who deserved kindness. That sincerity was what had drawn her in from the very beginning. As the streetlights flickered on, Claire said, "There is something I should tell you." Her voice lowered. "When you helped Lucy that day, I was there. I saw everything." Ethan blinked, surprised. "You were there?" "Yes," she said. "And from that moment, I knew you were someone different." He looked at her for a long time, realizing that every decision since that rainy evening had been leading to this quiet confession. He felt something shift inside him, not shock, not pride, but a deep sense of connection. Neither of them noticed the car parked across the street, its tinted windows hiding a camera lens that captured their every move. The first seeds of trouble had already begun to grow. The next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of his phone buzzing nonstop. He groaned, reached across the cluttered nightstand, and blinked at the screen. Dozens of missed calls. His heart sank when he saw the name of the local news station among them. Something was wrong. He turned on the television in the corner of his room, and his stomach dropped. A reporter stood outside the Davenport Motors headquarters, microphone in hand. The headline scrolling across the screen read, "Scandal or Strategy? CEO's charity program sparks questions." The reporter's voice was calm but sharp. "Sources suggest that Miss Claire Davenport's so-called community program may be less about compassion and more about publicity." Photos surfaced last night showing her growing connection with a local mechanic, Ethan Cole, now labeled as the face of her rebranding campaign. The screen flashed pictures of him and Claire outside the workshop, of Lucy's drawing pinned on his wall, even of the moment Claire's car had pulled up outside his garage. Ethan's pulse raced. Someone had been watching them. Dylan rushed into the room, still half asleep. "Ethan, what is going on? They are talking about you on television." Ethan muted the volume, staring at the frozen image of himself. "They are twisting everything," he said quietly. "They are making it look like she used me." "Or like you used her," Dylan said, frowning. "That is what they are implying." The thought hit Ethan like a punch. He turned off the screen and grabbed his jacket. "I need to talk to her." By the time he reached Davenport Motors, security guards stood at the main entrance, blocking reporters who shouted questions about betrayal, favoritism, and secret relationships. Claire appeared through the glass doors, her expression composed but her eyes tired. "Claire!" Ethan called out. The crowd turned instantly. Cameras flashed. She motioned for him to step inside, but the noise outside drowned her voice. A reporter shouted, "Mr. Cole, did you enter this partnership for fame or money?" Another added, "Are you romantically involved with Miss Davenport?" Ethan clenched his fists but said nothing. Claire finally managed to pull him into the lobby, where silence fell heavy between them. "They got the photos," she said softly. "Someone from the board leaked them. They think the workshops are a stunt, and they are calling for an internal review." He exhaled hard. "Claire, I swear I never talked to any reporter. I never wanted attention." "I know," she said, her voice steady but distant. "But perception is power, Ethan. They will not believe me until this dies down." "What are you saying?" She hesitated, the words cutting her throat as she forced them out. "You should stay away from the company for a while. Just until things settle." Ethan's jaw tightened. "After everything we built? You are letting them think I was part of this?" "I'm trying to protect you," she said quickly. "If you stay visible, they will destroy both of us." He stepped back, his eyes hard with hurt. "Protect me, or protect your image." The silence between them said everything. Claire's eyes glistened, but she said nothing more. Ethan turned and walked out, the echo of the cameras chasing him down the steps. As he reached the street, he looked back once at the tall building and saw the banner for the community program being taken down. The workshop that had given him hope now hung under suspicion. That night, back at his garage, Ethan ripped the newspaper headline from the door. He stared at the small drawing Lucy had made, still pinned to the wall, and whispered, "I did not do this for fame. I just wanted to fix something real." Outside, rain began to fall again, tapping softly against the window, the same rhythm that had started it all. Only this time, it sounded like goodbye. For 3 long days, Ethan kept the garage closed. He turned off his phone, ignored the reporters who knocked on the door, and buried himself in silence. The neon sign outside stayed dark, the same way it had been before everything changed. Each night he sat at his workbench, staring at the drawing Lucy had made, wondering how a simple act of kindness had turned into something ugly. On the 4th morning, Dylan found him asleep at the desk, his head resting on his arms. "You cannot keep hiding, Ethan," his brother said quietly. "You did nothing wrong." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "Tell that to the people who think I used her." "Then prove them wrong," Dylan said. "You always told me that fixing something means taking it apart first. Maybe this is your chance." Those words hit deeper than he expected. That afternoon, Ethan turned on the lights again and began cleaning the shop. The familiar sounds of tools and metal calmed him. He was still the same man who fixed things with his hands, and no rumor could change that. Meanwhile, across town, Claire stood in a crowded boardroom. The directors lined both sides of the table, their expressions stiff and calculating. "Your partnership with this mechanic has cost us investors," one of them said. "The foundation projects are on hold until further notice." Claire looked each of them in the eye. "You all talk about reputation as if it is more important than truth. Ethan Cole represents everything this company claims to stand for: hard work, integrity, and compassion. I will not allow his name to be destroyed because of corporate fear." Another director leaned forward. "If you refuse to comply, Miss Davenport, the board has the authority to suspend your position." Her heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. "Then suspend me." The room fell silent. For the first time, Claire felt the weight lift off her shoulders. She walked out without another word, leaving behind a company she had built, choosing something far more valuable: her own conscience. That evening, Ethan was under the hood of an old truck when he heard footsteps behind him. He looked up and froze. Claire stood there in jeans and a dark coat, her hair loose, her eyes tired but resolute. "I thought you would be at your office," he said softly. "I am not," she replied. "I resigned today." He stared at her, disbelief flashing across his face. "You gave it all up?" "I had to," she said. "They wanted me to distance myself from you. They called you a liability. But you were the only person who reminded me what leadership really means. I could not betray that." For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the city outside filled the space between them. Then Claire reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. She handed it to him. Ethan unwrapped it slowly, a leather glove, repaired and cleaned, the same one he had torn months ago. The stitching was careful, precise. "I found it the day I came to your garage," she said. "You left it on the counter. I had it fixed." Ethan swallowed hard, his voice rough. "Why?" "Because you taught my daughter that things worth keeping can always be repaired." He looked at the glove, then at her. The tension in his chest finally eased. "So what now?" Claire smiled faintly. "Now, we start over. Together, if you will have me." Ethan nodded slowly, the words heavy but full of hope. "I think that is something I can fix." Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled of metal and spring. For the first time in months, Ethan turned the neon sign back on, its blue light glowing against the glass Cole's garage, open once more. A few months later, spring had fully bloomed. The once quiet lot on Maple Street was now alive again. Cole's garage had become more than a repair shop. It was a gathering place. Kids from the neighborhood stopped by after school to learn basic repairs, and adults came to volunteer. The small workshop that once echoed with loneliness now rang with laughter and the steady hum of tools. Ethan stood outside one morning, watching a young boy tighten a bolt under his guidance. "That is it," he said gently. "Do not rush the work. Machines are like people, they respond best to patience." The boy smiled proudly, wiping grease on his sleeve. From across the street, Claire and Lucy approached carrying a box of sandwiches. Lucy ran ahead and waved. "Mr. Cole, Mom says we brought lunch for everyone." Ethan grinned, kneeling to take the box from her hands. "Then you just saved the whole crew." Claire walked up, her expression soft. She looked around the garage, taking in the busy hands and the hopeful faces. "You did this," she said quietly. "You turned a broken story into something good." He shook his head. "No, we did this. You believed when everyone else walked away." They stepped inside together. On the wall above the counter hung a framed piece of paper, Lucy's original drawing. Next to it, in a small glass case, was the old leather glove she had helped him fix. Underneath, a plaque read, "Kindness can build anything." Later that afternoon, a community event filled the garage lot. Banners fluttered in the breeze. One Kindness Day, sponsored by Cole's Garage and the Davenport Foundation. Local news crews arrived, this time not to expose a scandal, but to celebrate change. Claire stood before the crowd and spoke with quiet pride. "This place began with a single act of kindness," she said. "A man who gave without expecting anything in return. Today, we honor that spirit by giving it forward." Applause rose from the crowd. Ethan felt his throat tighten as Lucy ran onto the small stage and handed him a wrapped box. "Open it, Mr. Cole," she said eagerly. Inside was a small, handcrafted keychain, shaped like a heart, carved from steel. Etched on it were the words, "Hope runs on hands like yours." Ethan looked at her and smiled, his voice thick with emotion. "You did this yourself?" Lucy nodded proudly. "Mom helped me polish it." He crouched down, holding the keychain carefully. "Then I guess this is the best payment I have ever received." As the sun began to set, golden light filled the workshop. Music played softly, laughter floated through the air. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt something he had almost forgotten: peace. Claire stood beside him, her hand brushing lightly against his. "You know," she whispered, "I think your father would be proud." Ethan looked toward the photo of his father hanging near the door and nodded. "Maybe," he said, smiling, "but I think he would remind me that every engine runs best when it is cared for, and so do people." As evening fell, the neon sign of Cole's Garage glowed brighter than ever. The camera panned over the laughter, the lights, and the drawing that had started it all. Sometimes, one act of kindness does not just fix a machine. It repairs a life, rebuilds a community, and proves that goodness, once sparked, never fades.